Joined now by TSN hockey analyst, former Vancouver Canuck, Mr. Frank Corrado. How you doing?
Good. It's early morning. Just got in from La Belle Province, Montreal. Got the call up from the minors up to the NHL into the booth to call the Habs versus Kings with my food trick last night. Yeah.
How'd that go?
Well, it went great for the Kings. Actually, Montreal played a pretty good game. Like it was 4-0 LA. I actually can't fault Montreal's effort. And Slavkovsky looked really good. That was probably the best game I've seen him play, maybe ever. But LA just, routine win for them, 4-0, no problem, and low event game.
How did Frank Corrado feel about the color analyst position? How many times have you done that?
That was my second NHL game. Been doing some Champions Hockey League, as you know. We do some CHL, but no, it was good. It was when you work with a guy like Muddy. He's so good, and he sets you up the whole time. It was awesome to be back at the Bell Center. It was definitely the quietest I've ever heard that stadium, though.
Yeah,
and
really.
Hard to call them when a game goes like that.
Did you get a steamie?
I had 1.5.
It's great restraint on your part.
You couldn't finish the second half? Like, what was that?
I was actually caught in a tough spot. I was with my buddy Victor Finley, who's doing the radio play-by-play for the Habs, and we were in line there in the media room, and lady goes, "How many dogs do you want?" And I said 2. So she hands me a plate with 2, and I'm like, "All right, I guess I'll have the 2 because Victor's he got his own." And I'm like, "Now I got 2 here." So I had the first one. I get halfway through the second one, and I'm like, I got to go call a game. Like, I can't have 2 dogs in between a period here. So I disposed of the other half of the second one. And I imagine that's a very unpopular opinion with your listeners and viewers.
I imagine there's not many dogs that are disposed of midway through at the Bell Center.
They're just little steamies. It's not like they're
kind of known for those things.
That's just me being in my own head saying I can't bury 2 dogs during an intermission.
So, okay, true or false, you have seen NHL players order the steamies in game at the Bell Center.
I have been an NHL player who's ordered that in game. Mind you, a healthy scratch. I don't know if you're talking about players in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have never witnessed, and I've been to the Bell Center a lot when I played for Toronto. I have never witnessed a player even go remotely near one of those who's playing, but there was always a nice box of them waiting for us as soon as we got off the ice to finish the game.
We've seen backup goalies do it.
And to be fair, I believe the Kyle Wellwood, Shane O'Brien era predates Frank Corrado.
Yes.
With the Vancouver Canucks. You said you saw the Kings 11-0 on the road. They're now the number 2 team in the Pacific.
Crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and the Canucks don't face them till like late in the season. It's ridiculous how late they face them before they play a multitude of games.
They can get all this out of their system.
Yeah, exactly. What's Vancouver eventually going to face there with the Kings? What makes them so good?
Such a well-built team, very well-coached team, very structured. Like they make it very difficult for you to get through the neutral zone. Like they kind of stack 3 players across the red line, and it's the old 1-3-1. We've seen Guy Boucher do it in the past, and Todd McClellan likes it in LA, and they do a really good job. It poses a bunch of different issues for you. First of all, the thing that LA does better than anyone I've seen as far as doing this 1-3-1 is how quickly they get into it. Like, I was talking to some of the guys in the morning, and, it was like, how are you going to try and beat it? And I know in the past it was always, well, let's not let them get set up. Let's move the puck as quick as we can, transition it quick. That's what LA does really well. They get set up in that thing quicker than anyone I've seen. And even if you want to chip and chase pucks, you want to dump pucks in because you think you're doing the right thing there, and now you're not going to turn it over in the neutral zone. Drew Doughty's that one player back very often, standing by the goalie, and he's so good on the breakout. So they break the puck out so well because of that, and they just chip away at you. Like, they're big, strong forwards who have a lot of speed. They really lean on you in the offensive zone. And last night, it was just, small mistake, back of your net. And that happened 3 or 4 times. And that's going to be the case for a lot of teams that play against LA. And, even if you think you have an edge on them, it was Tuesday. They're in Columbus. They're down 3-0. And it took 6 minutes and 38 seconds for LA to come back in the third period. And then they won it in overtime. It's just, just business-like approach. They go about their business the same way every shift, every period, and they're a scary team. They're like talking to guys before the game. I was asking like, who's the best teams you guys have played? And it was Vegas and LA. That's what everyone seems to say.
Well, and tremendous depth down the middle, too. And to think Byfield's really coming here, playing on a wing.
Structure gets thrown around a lot in Vancouver right now because there hasn't been a lot lately. And you're talking about some of the structure there for LA. How is it that teams can just find structure? Like, why do they lose it? Like, so the Canucks played a terrible game on Tuesday, nearly got away with it and got at least past 60 minutes. Ultimately, don't. Their comeback is foiled. But then they come back, and we just knew it. We said going into this game, this is going to be a lower event game. Rick Tocchet's going to have them playing more stout defensively, and they did. Like, why does a team get loose all of a sudden? And then the ability to tighten up. And again, the foes are different, but I don't know that the Minnesota Wild ultimately are playing any worse than the Devils are. They'd won 4 straight coming in. But how does a team get loose and then all of a sudden find its structure again?
It's such a good question, and I've experienced this on many different levels. So from the team perspective, it's like playing with that kind of discipline every game and period after period. It's a serious mental sweat.
Right.
And some nights you just don't have it in you to dial it in. You're like, I just need a night where kind of can go through the motions a little bit here and just throw it in cruise control. It's hard to have that, hard to give yourself that mental sweat 82 games a year. So you're not going to have it a lot. And even from like a player's perspective as an individual, you know, you have games where you play really well and you have that foundation that makes you a good player. And then sometimes you want a little bit more. And it's really hard to just kind of stay in the moment about, this is what I do. I do this well. I don't need to try and do anything more than that. But there's also a discipline involved in that. And there's a mental sweat involved with that. So it really takes a certain kind of player and a certain kind of team to not get bored and bogged down by doing the same thing over and over and over. And the guys that are okay with that, the guys that don't get bored by that, generally speaking, we see them have pretty long careers where it's very consistent. And you get those guys together on the same team. And, you know, you get a team like LA where they kind of let that be the foundational piece first and foremost. And then the individual skill really takes over when you have the opportunity. And I think Quinton Byfield is a really good example of that, where this is a guy who a lot of people had questions about as this, you know, former 2nd overall pick. He's now having a big breakthrough season. He scores 2 goals last night. Like, I'm sure you caught the highlights. That was a pretty nice goal he scores as he goes wide on Caden Gooley. But like, this guy, like, big, strong, fast, playing with a lot of confidence now. And it's a little bit of a cautionary tale, I guess, for people who think that prospects need to arrive right away. Like, these guys are really good for a reason. There was a pedigree with this guy. He was the CHL Rookie of the Year in 2018 and 2019. Like, there's a reason why these guys are really good. And sometimes it just takes them a little while longer to arrive at the NHL level. And, you know, playing with Kopitar and Kempe and playing on a team like that he does certainly helps that along the way.
His fellow Sudbury Wolf there, Quinton Byfield.
Right.
Our first chance to talk to you since the Nikita Zadorov trade. Just interested in your thoughts on the trade and your thoughts on the pairing with Myers and what you've been able to see over these 3 games for him with Vancouver.
Big fan of the trade. Thought it was obviously very smart to bring in a big burly defenseman like that who can skate pretty well. And he's going to have his moments where, you know, he's going to take a dumb penalty or he's going to turn over the puck. And, you know, it may happen more often than you'd like, but you have to take the good with the bad. And he's going to play physical. Like we saw him kind of getting into it with Maroon at the end of the game. He's not going to let people take liberties. But I think the sequence that leads up to the Höglander goal is really interesting for me, watching that D pair play together, because they're in the defensive zone. There's 2 minutes and change left in that period. And there's a little battle in the corner. And you can see Zadorov, who's a gargantuan human. He kind of goes closer to the corner. They pinch things off, like they contain everything there. Puck goes the other way. It ends up coming back on a rush. And then you see Myers and Zadorov do a really good job of like neutralizing the rush situation. They're big, they're long, they're rangy, And then it's going to go back the other way for Höglander, and he takes the shot, and it's Zadorov who's up in the rush, who acts as a screen. So like, I feel like that was a really good sequence for that pair, where you see everything kind of go well for them and what's going to make them a good pair. Like, they're going to contain things in a small area in the defensive zone because they're so big, and it's going to be hard to get around those guys. And then, you know, when they can move the puck, and, you know, a guy like Zadorov who has good wheels, he's going to get involved in the play. It's just, it presents quite a challenge if you're the opposition, and especially if you're maybe undersized opposition.
Turning our attention to Andrei Kuzmenko. You may have noticed he's back in the doghouse here with Tocchet. And the head coach explained to us, and Blake and I both sort of perked up because, like, okay, here's the rationale. Kuzmenko is not getting all the way in on the forecheck, and he says that's causing problems for his line mates because they're a little bit confused as to where he's going to go, what he's going to do. And so they're just disjointed right now. Explain that to us a little further, Frankie.
You have to have a certain amount of predictability on the ice for your teammates, so they know what you're going to do. And the quicker you make your decision, the quicker other players can read off you and make their decisions. And when it comes to the forecheck specifically, I hate the terms that people use when they say F1 or F2 or F3. No one knows what the hell that means. So I had a coach, and I won't out him because I know he really likes this terminology, but I'm going to share what it is. And this is the visual that you need to have if you're seeing a forecheck. The first forward needs to hunt the puck, okay? The second forward needs to seek where the option is. That's where Kuzmenko is right now, a little slow. He's not like, the first player can get in. He knows what the job is, even Kuzmenko. Like, he can get in as the first guy. But the second guy needs to seek out where the option is, because that means there's a third guy who now needs to seal a wall. So he's either going to have to go to the strong side wall, or he's going to have to go the other way. Like, so if you're that second guy, you need to make a decision a little quicker, and then that'll allow the D, because as we know, Rick Tocchet wants his D being up, having a good gap, trying to keep things alive in the offensive zone. Then the quicker everything happens in front of the D, the more decisive they can be. And then they don't get caught in the middle, and they don't have to give up the blue line. So it is really important for first player to hunt, second player to seek where the options are going to be. And then, you know, your three pack there between your third forward in and your two defensemen, now they can really start to log jam things. So like for Kuzmenko, make the decision quicker, be more decisive in your game. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about last week when Tocchet said, like, he's got to move his feet through the neutral zone. Like, yeah, the more you skate through the neutral zone, especially in the middle of the ice, now you can kind of make your decision as far as who you're going to engage when you get in on the forecheck.
So the first player's like the hound dog, goes into the woods,
scares
the game towards the hunters and post 1 and 2.
I've seen him in an F1 position too, where he's just too slow to get to it, giving the guy who's got the puck on the end boards all sorts of time to make a strong outlet pass, and then, you know, the other team's away. So whether he's F1 or F2, it's just not working for Kuzmenko.
Or if he's the hunter or the seeker.
Yeah.
He just told you he doesn't like F1, F2, Blake.
It's just what's used. I appreciate it.
He gives us these fantastic terms, hunter, seeker, and you revert back to the slang that nobody knows.
Man, if my old coach is watching this, I'm getting a phone call for sure.
Oh boy,
I bet he trademarked it.
Minor hockey loves F1, F2, F3 right
they
now.
love it.
Oh my god, coach, minor hockey coach, you're playing house.
Sam Lafferty is a Vancouver Canuck. He's not a Toronto Maple Leaf. Can you tell us exactly how much that burns the Leafs right now? Because he's got more than a handful of goals and just playing his role perfectly right now for the Canucks.
Yeah, there's a segment of Leafs Nation that really misses Sam Lafferty, and I think it's much bigger than people would like to admit. And like myself included, when I saw Lafferty go, I did see him as just another guy in Toronto. Of course, he would be a welcome addition, given the way like the fourth line in Toronto has had their struggles, and they've played better of late. Like we've seen a little bit of a rotation here with either Bobby McMahon or Ryan Reeves being in and out of the lineup. And, you know, Reeves has had a tough go. Like there was a little while there where he wasn't on the ice for a goal for, and I think the first time he put his hands up in the air to celebrate a goal on the ice was, well into November. So things are getting better for the fourth line, but there's no doubt like Sam Lafferty would be a welcome addition. And even in Toronto, the penalty kill has really struggled. And Lafferty was a guy who understood the penalty kill, and Toronto does lack some players that have had experience playing on the penalty kill at the NHL level. So that's hurt them as well. And credit to him. He's done a great job here in Vancouver and fit in really nicely. And I think, Tocchet would have some familiarity with him, I believe, or Jim Rutherford would for sure, because, Rutherford was the GM in Pittsburgh when he would have signed out of college. So, understanding what a player's strengths are, the coach understanding how to use him to the best of his ability. And then for the player to apply that himself, like gets around the ice really well. Nice to have that kind of speed. Nice to have that tenacity, that physicality. And I see a lot of Leaf fans kind of down on the fact that Toronto basically gave him up for nothing.
Yeah, and he's been just with the Dr. Orr, nice utility club here in Vancouver. I caught insider trading yesterday. I saw them speaking of the right shot defensemen that are out there. Victoria's Tyson Barrie, Tony DeAngelo, of course, Ethan Bear, who's getting near a return and would only be a signing, and Ilya Lyubushkin in Anaheim. Where would you go here, Frankie? Like, of those names, who's most interesting for you?
Can I be honest? There's not a lot of interesting names for me. Like if you're a good team, you have your Tony DeAngelo and your Tyson Barrie already, and you probably have better versions of those players. So you're not bringing in that kind of guy. Ilya Lyubushkin on a really good team is a third pairing guy, nothing more. He had to bat above his weight class here in Toronto because they were depleted at the time. So he had to play with Morgan Riley on the first pair, and quite honestly, when he was doing that, like we saw him kind of get exposed, and that was too much for him. And he looked good in flashes, but he needs to be lower in the lineup. So there's not a ton that excites me. And the players that you mentioned there in Barrie and DeAngelo, those kinds of guys, like we saw it in free agency, teams were reluctant to give those guys term and money and didn't want to commit to players like that because I don't know. It feels like you have your one kind of guy that really leads the charge offensively, and you're trying to build around that with the bigger, kind of stronger guys who can play some matchups. And like we just talked about LA, they have guys that way. Like Gavrikov got a 2-year deal at really good money. I think like Mikey Anderson is a really good compliment to Drew Doughty, and like Vegas won the cup with some bigger, longer, rangier guys. So it seems like that puck mover kind of one-dimensional guy. If you're bringing that player in, is he going to have a big impact for you playing on the second power play unit? I don't see it. Like there's, the other guy that's out there is Matt Dumba. And I think like Matt Dumba, the idea of Matt Dumba when he's playing at his best, I believe that would help a lot of teams. I think, the guy who can skate really well, punishing physically, but can move the puck, not afraid to get involved in the play. But is he that guy right now? Or are you just bringing him in because you like the idea of that's what he could be if he could find it? So that's, there's always with this year's kind of D class that's out there, and Chris Tanev included because of the injury issues that he's had over his career. I think there is a significant element of buyer beware.
Matt Dumba right now at 3.9 or Tyler Myers at 6. Who would you rather have on your team?
Well, just because the cap is what it is, I'm gonna take my chances with the player that makes less.
Yeah.
And try and hope that I could extract the most out of him. I think, we're talking double the price. Are you getting double the production or double the great play out of Tyler Myers compared to Matt Dumba? No, absolutely not. So I think given the price, you'd probably go with Matt Dumba. But, if you could work around the salary cap and get to the point in the playoffs where, you don't have the salary cap anymore, I'd probably be more inclined to have Tyler Myers because he's, 7'8" and can provide some kind of service for me lower in the lineup.
Great wingspan.
Yes, big wingspan guy.
Space eaters. Frankie, marvelous stuff. As always, my friend, have a great weekend. We'll catch up back on Wednesday next week.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys. We'll talk.
This clip brought to you by the VGH Millionaire Lottery. Order now for your chance to win one of 10 grand prizes. For tickets, go to millionairelottery.com.